The coronavirus pandemic forced me to work at home, so I went into my basement and moved some boxes around to make a space to work. Sometimes I get up and I look through some of the boxes down here, and the other day I came across something that I hadn't seen in years. I found a little plastic bag, and inside was my old high school class ring, and also a silver star. Now that has an interesting story that goes with it. I took the star upstairs and my class ring and I applied a little chemistry and cleaned them up a little bit. And here's the star, a little close up. Please indulge me while I tell you a little story that goes along with this pen. Many years ago, I was a high school student, just like you. And one day, it was announced that we would all us juniors, would have to take a test. It was called the SAT. I didn't know anything about the SAT, but I knew about tests. And so I decided, no matter what it was for, I would do my best. So I took the SAT, and it was pretty hard. I'd never had a test like it before. About 6 weeks later, I got the results back, and I did pretty good. It wasn't great, but it was pretty good. And I found out, in the meantime, that the SAT was a college admissions test. In other words, it's a test that you had to take in order to apply to college and be accepted. So I'd always wanted to go to college, but I was poor. My family didn't have a lot of money. We were on free and reduced lunch my whole life. In fact, my grandparents didn't even have indoor plumbing. They lived nearby. So I didn't know how I was ever going to make it to college because that cost money. So I had a job and I worked and I was saving my money, but still, I didn't have anywhere near enough. Well, the next year, my senior year, one of the college counselors came to me and said, you know, we're giving the SAT to juniors again, and we'd like for you to take it too. And because you're on free and reduced lunch, we'll pay for it. So I thought, you know, I can do better on that test this time than I did last time. And so I took it again. And you know what? I only made 10 points better. Now, 10 points out of 1,600, that's not a very good improvement. Still, it was okay. It just wasn't great. So, what happened after that? Well, several things. First, I found out that the SAT stood for Scholastic Aptitude Test. I was very disappointed that I'd only made 10 points better, basically gotten one more question right. But it turned out that it wasn't the type of test I was used to taking. It was testing my ability to succeed in college. It wasn't testing what I knew or really what I could do from what I'd learned in high school. So it was a different type of test than I was used to. And so no wonder I didn't do any better, because even though I learned more in the year between my junior and senior year of taking the test, I hadn't really improved my college aptitude skills. I wasn't working on that. One thing that happened was I got a letter and a little pin from the SAT people because I'd made the highest score at my school. The pin is recognition of an award that they called Star Student. So I was happy about that. I won an award. Yay. My high school counselor came to me one day and said, I'm going to take another student to a college visit to a small college called Shorter College in North Georgia. I lived in Georgia at the time. Would you like to go with us? And I thought, sure. I've never been to a college campus before. I was a senior in high school. But I'd like to see what a college looks like. So I went with the counselor. And one of the people that I met while I was on this visit was the financial aid person. So that person told me, hey, you're a star student. We can give you a $750 scholarship for that award. Now, that may not sound like a lot to you, but back in those days, this is the late 1970s, that was about 1/4 of the yearly tuition. It was a 25% scholarship. That was awesome. So I said, wow, that's great. I'd love to go here and get $750 scholarship. So doing well on that test, doing my best on that test, led to the possibility of going to college. And when I looked into it further, I found out, there are ways to get money to go to college. And there are other scholarships you can get, and there's federal financial aid that you can get, and college became a reality for me. So doing well on that one test really changed the direction of my life. So I went to college. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot. One day, they told us seniors that you have to take a test. It was called the GRE. I didn't know what the GRE meant, but they said you have to take it. And so I said, sure, I'll sign up. Now, I'd gone to Shorter College for 2 years, and then I went to the University of Georgia for about 2/3 of a year. I thought about being a physics major, and Shorter didn't have a physics major, and so I dropped out and went to the university. Turned out I really didn't like a large university. I was so used to the small college scene that I went back to Shorter. But what it meant was I was basically a year behind in my science coursework compared to my classmates. I was classified as a senior by credits, but I was not going to be able to graduate at the same time. So my friends had signed up for the biology GRE, and since I was a double major in biology and chemistry, I decided to take the biology test with my friends rather than the chemistry test, where I really didn't know anybody that was taking that one. So I went into the room, and the biology GRE, it was hard. I was a year behind all the other people in my biology coursework, so seemingly they would have been a lot more prepared. But you know what? I'd learned my lesson by taking that SAT. I learned that in between my junior and senior year, I didn't improve much. Not necessarily because I hadn't learned a lot of stuff, but because I hadn't learned how to take a test. And so I'd really kind of made a hobby of looking at the tests I was given during college and trying to learn how to anticipate what questions were going to be like, what answers were going to be correct, what was expected. And so when I took that biology GRE, it asked me a lot of questions that I didn't know the answer to. But I knew how to take a test. I knew how to figure things out. And so about, 6 weeks later, I was walking along at the college on my way to the cafeteria, and a professor walked by and said, "Good job, Kemp." I said, "Thank you." And another one walked by and said, "Hey, Andy, nice job." I said, "Hey, I appreciate that." And a third one walked by and said, "Hey, Kemp, that is fantastic. What a great honor." And I said, "Thank you. What are you talking about?" Turns out they'd all just left the faculty meeting, and at the faculty meeting, the results of the GRE had been announced. I guess they shared private information back in those days. And I'd made a really good score on the GRE, on the biology section. I made higher than anybody else at my college. Not because I knew more biology, but because I knew how to take a test. So, a little while after that, a professor said, "Hey, I'm taking another student to Emory University for a college visit. Would you like to go?" I said, "Sure, why not?" I didn't know much about Emory University other than it was a university in Atlanta, and I wanted to go to graduate school by this point. I thought, I'd like to maybe be a teacher or a college professor someday, and so I need some graduate classes. So I sent in an application, and a few days later, the professor took another student and me to Emory University. And I walked in to the biology building, and I asked around, and they said, "If you want to talk to somebody about being admitted to graduate school, you have to go see this professor upstairs." So I walked into the professor's office, and I knocked on the door, unannounced, and I said, "Hi, I'm Andy Kemp." And the professor dropped the stuff he had in his hand. He said, "I know you. I want to talk to you." It turned out that I'd made such a high score on that test that they were really interested in not just admitting me to go to graduate school, but they gave me a full fellowship, full tuition scholarship. They paid me to go to university because of that test score, and because I'd made good scores all throughout college on my college courses as well. But what really made the difference was that test score. I've got one more test story to tell you. I became a teacher. I really enjoyed that. And one day I got selected to be part of a group of teachers that got some special training about using videos in the classroom. And I went to a series of workshops. And at one of those workshops, a fellow came over to me and said, "I'm a professor of education at the University of Georgia. I'd like to talk to you about becoming part of our program." And I said, "You're a professor of education? You mean you can get a degree in education?" And he said, "Not just education, but science education." And I said, "Wow, that's right up my alley. I'm really interested." I said, "What do I have to do?" And he said, "Well, you've got to take a test." So I had to sign up for yet another GRE test. This one is the general test it's like an ACT or an SAT. It just covers things like math and science, reasoning skills, but it was going to be on a computer. It was an adaptive test that when you answered one question, it would consider which question to give you next. And so the person sitting beside you at the next computer terminal wouldn't have the same questions as you. I'd never taken a computer test. I knew nothing about the GRE or these adaptive logics tests. But I said, "Hey, I know a lot about tests by now. I'm not only good at taking tests, but I'm good at giving tests too. So I might as well sign up and I'll go and take that GRE." So I took the GRE on the computer. The very first question, I had no clue what the answer was. It was something about a spotted cow. I really didn't know what the answer was, but I sat there and I puzzled it out. I took my time. I was like, I don't have a lot of time on each question, but I got to get this one right because the other questions are going to depend on this one. I answered that question, and I answered a series of other questions, and I got finished, and it gave me the results of the test, and guess what? I did really well. really well. So I went to the University of Georgia one day and I said, here I am. Here's my test scores. And they said, you're in. We want you. Here's a fellowship. Here's full tuition. We'll pay for your college. Awesome. Made all the difference. Doing well on a test. Doing well on the test, 3 different tests, really, really affected my life. I'm telling you this story of my life not to impress you with my great intelligence, but to impress upon you the fact that A, tests matter. B, it really matters that you always try your best because you never know what's going to happen. And C, it's possible to learn how to make a better score on a test. You don't necessarily have to be the most intelligent person to make the highest score. You just have to understand the mechanics behind the test. So, going back to my first point, you really need to take tests seriously. You're not in charge of the world, and you don't understand the world if you're a young person yet. You think you do, but you don't always know why things are the way they are. But what you have to do is when something comes along and you're told that you have to do something, you really need to take it seriously. Instead of just questioning it, do your best. Do your best on it, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the consequences are going to be. But if you try your best, then you at least can't be disappointed in yourself. And you never know. You might be like me. You might find great success. So tests are important. And doing your best is important. It can change the course of your life. At least it did for me. And my other point about learning how to take a test, I'm not going to share my test-taking tips with you in this particular video, but I will later in another video. I'll tell you a little bit about how to be successful on any test, not just the SAT or the ACT, college admission test. All I need for you to understand now is that test-taking is a set of skills, and it's a set of processes. It's things that you can do and learn how to do. But it is a matter of learning, and it is a matter of trying and making an effort. And I want to encourage you to do that. It turns out that on these tests, again, like on the SAT, I maybe didn't make the best score. I didn't make a perfect score anywhere close. But it was good enough to at least put me on the path of success. Now, I'm a teacher. I'm a high school teacher. I teach science. For those of you that don't know who I am, if you're watching this video, my name is Andy Kemp, and I teach at Louisville Male High School, a very good school in Louisville, Kentucky. And some people might say, well, how successful really are you? You're just a teacher. I love my job. I love my career. I love my life. I may not be wealthy in terms of money, but you know what? I make 5 times more money every year than my father ever made. I consider myself a great success. But even more important than not living in poverty, I enjoy what I do. I love teaching. I always loved school, and I love teaching and being around school and school children, school teachers, the entire environment. So for me, this is a dream job. It doesn't have to be your dream job. But the question you got to ask yourself is, what do you want to be? And what is it going to take for you to be that? And then start working towards your goal. And whether you like it or not, tests are going to be part of that career path. It doesn't matter whether you go to college or not. You're still going to have to take tests. So again, I want to stress, you can learn how to take a test, but you have to make an effort. You can do things that will help you make a better score on any given test, but you have to make the effort. You got to take them seriously. You never know what might happen. Try your best when you take the test, and we'll leave the rest up to Providence. And let's see what happens. Best of luck to you. There probably are SAT and ACT tests coming up very soon. Let me encourage you, if you're thinking about going to college, to go and sign up and do your best.